Welcome back to Let's Talk Golf, a biweekly podcast featuring all things golf. I'm your host, PGA Professional Mark Guttenberg. This week, I'm excited to bring you an interview with my absolute favorite LPGA teaching professional in the world, none other than my wife, Leslie Guttenberg. Leslie became a member of the LPGA in 1988. In 2000, she was awarded the Northeast Section's LPGA Teacher of the Year and also honored by Golf for Women magazine as one of the top 50 women instructors in the United States. Leslie has served as an LPGA Member Advisor for many years, guiding potential LPGA members of the Teaching and Club Professional Division through the process of becoming a member. She graduated from Florida State University with a master's degree in special education. As my business partner at Guttenberg's Golf Development Programs, I've had the pleasure of working alongside Leslie for the past 30 years and witnessed her rise to the top level in her profession firsthand. In this episode, we'll learn about Leslie's journey in golf and have an in-depth conversation about the difference between teaching men versus women, as well as the do's and don'ts of couples golf. This episode is brought to you by TaylorMade Golf. Join the M family and find out why the best players choose TaylorMade. From Olympic gold medalist Justin Rose to current and former number one ranked players in the world Dustin Johnson, Jason Day, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, and a host of others, TaylorMade delivers the best year after year. Well, welcome back to the show. This is the interview you've all been waiting for. I have with me the very talented, the very beautiful, the love of my life, my wife, Leslie Guttenberg, our LPGA expert, and today we're going to be talking about all things golf relating to men versus women and couples. So, Leslie, welcome to Let's Talk Golf.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Well, Leslie, I know that you've been dying to come on the show, and one of the things I want our listeners to get a little bit more background about you and actually how did you get started in the game of golf?
I think as golf pros, we come in through different doors, and mine is definitely a different door because I grew up in an era where golf really was only afforded and offered to guys in high school. And so all of our boyfriends were playing golf, and they would leave us and come back with this crazed look on their face. And we, what is going on out there on the golf course? So that piqued my interest. And then I got very interested in just pursuing it as an athlete, just trying it here and there. I thought, well, maybe the only way I can get into golf is to marry a golf pro. So I thought that might be another door because colleges really weren't offering, there weren't many colleges out there offering scholarships, and I couldn't see myself that. I had never an opportunity to develop. So I went to Florida State. They tried to recruit me for the golf team because I had a good golf swing, but I knew better. I knew what it entailed. And I'd played volleyball for Indiana University. I knew what practicing was about, and I decided to direct my attention to academics because I was studying to get my master's in special education, to learn how to teach and special needs. So that is my journey. And then, of course, I met you.
Well, there's more to it than that. You're leaving out what you brought with you in a very special newspaper article before you met me. Tell us just a little bit about that, and we'll get into that story too.
Well, Johnny Miller won the U.S. Open, and he and his wife made the front page of a sports page, a local newspaper, and I cut that out, and I thought, there it is. I'm going to marry a professional golfer one day. Cut that out, put it on my bedroom wall, and every day I said, I'm going to marry a professional golfer.
That's right. And so what happened, we both happened to be living in the same dormitory at Florida State University, Smith Hall, and Leslie lived on the 6th floor. I lived on the 5th floor. It was a co-ed dorm, but the gals had the top 5 floors and the guys had the bottom 5. But the hot plates were on the 6th floor. So I had to go to the hot plates to cook my hamburger helper for dinner. And Leslie comes out of the elevator, and we locked eyes. Our eyes met. I think it was love at first sight. She had just come from dinner, but she wanted to have an excuse to talk to me. So you went back to your room, got a pot of water, started to boil it, and you asked me during our conversation, so what are you doing here, and what are you going to do when you grow up? And so naturally, I tell you, I'm going to be a golf pro. I'm on the golf team here at Florida State. I'm going to play on the PGA Tour. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, my gosh. Ding, ding, ding. I couldn't believe I found you so fast. Johnny Miller just won the U.S. Open 2 months prior to that. I figured I'd have to look for you for a long time. And there you were 2 months later.
I think I got lucky, because if you'd have met anybody else that said the same thing, you'd have snatched him up. You
Probably.
just took the first guy that said he was going to be a golf pro.
No, you're pretty special.
Oh, well, you have good taste. I will admit to that. So, ironically, that little story has a follow-up story to it over 30 years later.
Yes.
So I did become a golf pro. I did have a short stint on the PGA Tour, not a very long one.
We toured many tours together.
We played many tours together. But in 2006, I happened to qualify for the U.S. Senior Open at Prairie Dunes in Hutchinson, Kansas. We actually knew the sports information director from Florida State, who was now head of broadcasting with the USGA.
That's right.
And he was at the event. We told him our story about Johnny Miller.
I had my newspaper article with me.
You brought that, and so he thought, well, we got to get Johnny down here, and we got to tell him this story. So, sure enough, he comes down out of the broadcast booth.
Very cool. There
like
he was.
A man descending down the stairs, a man from heaven or wherever he came from. And he listened to our story.
Yes.
And then we posed for a picture with him. And he says to you, what?
Don't forget to lay your head on Mark's shoulder, because he saw the picture of his wife laying her head on his shoulder. And there we were 30 years later posing with Johnny Miller, but with Mark having to have just completed the U.S. Open. It was phenomenal.
It was pretty special. In fact, we have that picture up on our website even to this day.
Yeah.
So, that was a great little side story there. But, then, Leslie, going back to after we met in college and I graduated and went out and got a job in the golf industry before I played on the tour. As you said, we toured together. But then you hit a point in your career where you decided to become a golf professional.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, you convinced me.
You can't beat them, join them? Was that it?
I had, because we moved so much, I had long-term sub-jobs in the school system, and I was working with special needs kids. But then I thought I would go into the corporate world, and I actually went into the IT world and became a software consultant and did 5 years of commuting from Loudoun County to Rockville, Maryland, and then was pretty much crying every morning going, I don't want to do this anymore. You're looking for a partner to open a golf school, and you look at me and go, hey, I've got this idea. Why don't you come work for me? Because you know how to teach. You have your education background and you know about the game of golf because you've toured with me, traveled with me. All I need to do is teach you how to teach golf, learn the mechanics of it, learn the vocabulary. And I was so desperate to leave my corporate job, I said yes. Of course, realizing what you said is in 1 year, I can take you from an amateur to pro status. You complete your PAT and become an LPGA Teaching Pro a year from June. And 1 year later, there I was, passing my playing ability test and teaching tests, and there I was.
And it is a very phenomenal story. At the time when you left your job, you were shooting around 115 for 18 holes. And I was pretty confident, I think you had to shoot 85 to pass your playing ability test back then, that sleeping with your instructor every night and getting golf lessons every day, we could make this happen. So
I was naive enough to believe that.
And good thing you did,
Absolutely.
because that story came true. And let's talk about that playing ability test. Do you still remember that? You had to play 1 round, 18-hole round, shoot 85 or better in 18 holes before you could do the rest of it, which was not just take a playing ability test. There was practical tests, written tests. So what happened during the playing ability test?
Well, you were my caddy, and I don't remember anything else.
Well, I can fill you in.
Yes, I know you can.
You actually went out, and the first round, you tried it. They said, hey, if you don't pass and you want to try it again in the same day, we can let you play a second round. So you came pretty close on your own. I think you shot like 90, 92 or something like that, but you got a little nervous and you messed up toward the end. Then you go out the second time, and I'm caddying for you, and I'm, clubbing you and keeping you calm. And then I got a little nervous because we got to the 17th hole, and you were right on the number, or just a couple shots ahead of the number. But 17 was a par 3 that you had to hit 3 wood to. It was a long par 3.
I do remember that.
And 18 was a par 5 with a tee shot over a cavern that you had to carry to at least 150 yards. So even though I'm a positive guy, as your caddy, all I could see was trouble everywhere. But I remember saying to you on that 17th tee, to keep you calm and to keep me calm, was just pretend we're on the driving range at Prince William, which is where I was teaching at the time, and you're just hitting great shot after great shot. And just put yourself on the driving range. She gets up and hits that 3 wood 3 feet from the hole, knocks it in for birdie.
Wow.
I mean, that made me relax just a little, but not that much, because I'm seeing that ball go in the cavern off the tee on 18 and, making triple bogey. And I think you could make double bogey and still make it with that birdie. So you hit your tee shot and it gets over the cavern.
Whew.
Yeah, exactly. Then you hit your second shot, and you got it up there within like a 9-iron distance from the green.
Ooh, my 9-iron.
And then the best news, you hit the 9-iron on the green. So at that point, I realized you could 4-putt and still make it. And I might have even mentioned that to you. Not the best caddy job at that point.
I was wondering why you were sweating so much.
Yes, but she 2-putted, made par, broke 85, got your playing ability test, and the rest is history.
But I have to tell you, that was payback for all the rounds of golf, all the holes I watched you play in mini tours, section qualifiers, PGA tours, sweating every bullet, being close to the cut, being close to making a check. So it was like payback time. You got to feel what I feel following you in all of your golf history.
I did, and I have to admit, I would rather be the guy hitting the shot than watching somebody hit the shot. At least then it's on me, I can't.
But it was a great experience. And if
awesome.
I've never thanked you before, thank you for caddying for me.
Well, thank you for the 25 years or so of teaching and giving me all your money afterwards. So that's worked out pretty well for me.
That's what you think. It's your money,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. I know, I'm kidding myself. So now let's get to the topic I want to talk about, and that's teaching men versus teaching women. As an LPGA instructor, do you view that as something different? When you teach men or women, do you have a different approach?
Well, I think that it's important that we never really stereotype or categorize our students, because every student is an individual. So I don't want to go into automatic pilot and saying, okay, this is a man and I teach him this way, or this is a woman and I teach him this way. I say, this is an individual. Let me ask them questions. Let me hear how their brain works. Let me help identify their learning style, and then approach the lesson according to their needs and where they're headed, what they want. And so, but I do find that it's the interviewing process that is very different between men and women. It's very important that women really get to express everything that they've been going through, or everything that they need for their game of golf. And they're also checking me out to say, are you really listening to me? This is important. I need to communicate with you. That allows me then to properly connect with them and communicate with them. When I teach men, they're pretty much 1, 2, 3. This is what I want. And this is, can you deliver this? And I stick to the agenda. And the communication, more than anything, is different. How they receive it and how I deliver it.
And I've actually watched you give quite a few lessons over the year, and you're right. Guys usually want explanations. They want the mechanical background. Not all guys, like you said. We shouldn't generalize about anybody. But I've seen you give golf lessons to women where they may only hit 5 balls during the whole lesson. You have a lot more conversations about the things that bother them, a lot more practice swings without hitting balls, probably a lot less use of teaching aids and video than I do with my men. And that's great that you do recognize the differences, but every now and then you're going to get that woman that wants the mechanics. And same with me.
And as a teacher, too, we all have our preferences, teaching preferences. And so I'm not a big teaching tool teacher. So that also influences how I deliver.
That's a good point, too. So let's talk about our number one rule about coaching, whether we're on the range or on the course. What is it? Tell our listeners what it is.
Well, this is so critical, and it has really secured a lot of peaceful rounds between you and I, and then taking our advice and then sharing it with other couples. But typically, there's an interaction that causes some friction or disrupts the fun of the game is when couples begin to coach each other during the round. And not always is that the case, that people don't always want to be coached, especially women don't want to be coached. And men feel their husband or their mate feel obligated to save them, to coach them.
We're that knight in shining armor.
Absolutely.
We got to come to the rescue.
You've got to find the solution.
So what's the rule?
The rule is you ask the question on the first tee, do you want to be coached today?
That's it. And if the answer is no,
Yep.
guys, you're off the hook. You don't have to be the knight in shining
Yes.
armor. I mean, let's be honest. Half the time, you don't have a clue what they're doing
That's
wrong.
right.
You're going to say you picked your head up, whether that's what happened. Biggest myth in golf, by the way. And so I think, the important thing is that maybe you console them. Say, look, I've been where you've been. Don't worry, it's going to get better. Let's look for some other reasons to be out here on the golf course besides having the perfect golf shots every
Yes,
time.
right,
Spending quality time alone together. Sunset on a golf course is one of the most beautiful places to be. For men, a lot of times it's about the score. It's about, just having the best round and getting some of my stuff out is when a woman compliments you on a shot and she says, man, that was awesome, and you really didn't hit it that well, and she says, that was awesome. I would rather, this is my own little pet peeve, so a lot of you listeners out there may think I'm crazy, but anyway, instead of saying great shot without knowing whether I hit it good or not, say, boy, that looked really good. Did you catch that one? Or something like that, What do you think about that?
Well, I've learned over time that I've complimented you and go, nah, that wasn't a good shot. Like, no. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do I say? How do I engage? How do I encourage? And so you've had to teach me what to say.
And sometimes you'll say nice shot and you're not even watching the shot. And that kind of
I'm trying to be in there with you though.
Yeah. Well, I just want you to be honest, if you didn't see it, say, I didn't see that one, but well, it looked like a really good swing. And you will say, boy, that looked like a great swing. I said, that was awful. I just hooked it 30 yards into the woods. Yeah. And I'm thinking, do you have a clue what's going on out there? Yeah. So it's not anything you're doing wrong. It's just like it's not anything the guy's doing wrong when he's trying to help you. It's just we're trying to get along. And so the little bit of communication we can do about don't coach me today or coach me today or don't tell me anything unless I ask for it.
Yes.
That's some pretty good advice.
Yeah, just setting up the ground rules before you tee off. It really makes the round a lot easier.
So, and for women, what is it all about? What's the journey all about for women? Is that different than for men, you think?
Speaking from my experience, women come into the game when I ask them, why are you playing your game? The number one answer is so that I can spend time with my family or my friends, so that I can enjoy the company of others, and I want to play golf well enough so that I don't embarrass myself. And so that really carves out a great picture for my students, for me to teach them and say, okay, so here are the behaviors you need to be able to spend time with the people. These are the perspectives you need. And let's get this swing rolling so that you can participate quickly, because you don't want to wait 2 years. They typically have a family outing the next weekend and they've never played golf before. So how do we get them ready for that event? And then I also, from a general standpoint too, is that realizing golf for women is beyond the golf course. Hitting the ball is a piece of it, but is where we're eating. What vacation destination? What wardrobe do I need? What friends am I going to meet? What kind of wine will I have at the end of this round with my playing partners? It's much more social game. And of course, there are women that are competitive women that are in it to win club championships, to compete in RFACs, to just competitive leagues. But in general, women love the social aspect of golf.
And as the guys are listening, they say, geez, what's this going to cost me? But it's worth it, guys. Trust me. Get them a nice outfit. It gives you an excuse to get to the golf course.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Oh, boy.
I know I'm going to get some letters on that
goodness.
one. Okay. So Leslie and I, a while back, we were attempting to write a book on couples golf. The name of the book was Nice Shot Honey, A Couple's Guide to Learn How to Play Together and Stay Together. We even got a publisher in New York that wanted to publish the book, but the demands were just ridiculous, and we decided to go another direction, but we had to write a proposal with a couple of sample chapters. And one of those chapters that Leslie wrote was, It's Not About You, Larry. And Leslie, I'd love for you to share with the listeners what that was about.
Sure. It goes back to a comment we were talking about earlier that sometimes a woman may just hit 5 or 10 balls in the lesson. They go home and tell their husband they only hit 5, 10 balls, and they're going, are you kidding? What kind of lesson is that? Them realizing that they're good, the perspective of a man's perspective is, I need to hit 30, 40 balls for it to be a good lesson. So when a husband comes with a wife for a lesson, they have their own perspective on what a good lesson is about or how to learn. So I was teaching this woman one time, and I was trying to get her to really widen her swing arc, okay? But you don't say that to a student, I'm going to widen your swing arc. You relate to them and say what makes sense to them. And she learned that I'm going to stretch my left arm out, just to widen, just that good stretch. Her husband is in the lesson and says, stretch, what kind of word is that? No, how about, I don't like that. I like extension. That makes more sense. And I turned around to him and I said, well, this is not about you, Larry.
Ooh, shot him dead in the water.
Yeah. So that's the story.
So that's the story, and I don't think he ever came to another lesson. Never said another word the rest of the way. But it's important
when I take notes for women, I send them home, is that and if I'm coaching the husband how to coach his wife or partner or whatever, it is that coach from the notes that I'm writing, not from your paradigm.
Exactly. That kind of brings me into my next point. We do couples workshops.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do a lot of couples workshops, and one of the things about the couples workshop is not always are the two golfers in the relationship at the same level.
Correct.
One might be a beginner, not even played before. The other one might be very advanced. So part of our couples workshop is we go up to the two students. We make one sit back and watch instead of hitting balls and waiting their turn. And while we're doing that, we give them a piece of advice. We make sure that the spouse that is watching or the boyfriend, girlfriend that is watching only sticks to that advice. So perfect example would be, let's say you give somebody the suggestion to keep your arm straight, your left arm straight for right-handed golfers on the backswing. And the husband's watching the wife do this, and the wife keeps the arm perfectly straight, but she hits a terrible shot, which has nothing to do with keeping the arm straight. You work on that piece, we'll worry about where the ball goes later. And what does he say? Oh, honey, you picked your head up. That was terrible. And so he's wasting the time and money they spent for the information for the lesson. He's not giving her any good feedback. We have a stage in golf, we call it the romance stage, where you want them to fall in love with what they're doing. And if everything you do is tell them what they're doing wrong, think about that if it's outside of golf. You just meet somebody and you say, I don't like the way you dress. I don't like you're wearing too much makeup. Or she says, hey, why is your shirt hanging out all the time? There would be no romance. There would be no relationship. So if you want to keep them in the game, you got to let them fall in love with it. Don't do the thinking. Let us tell them what to work on. You stick to that part of it, because that's really going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, because most new golfers quit within the first 2 years of playing. So we've got to set them up to succeed.
Absolutely. So great points. So Leslie, one of the things I like about your teaching is you're very much into, in the interview, determining the learning styles of your students.
Yes.
We have visual. Those are the ones that like to see video a lot. We have kinesthetic, and kind of one of your favorites that you really seek out is the auditory learner. So tell us more about an auditory learner, what you look for, how you teach them. What is that?
I think an auditory learner is usually disguised and believing a teacher may mistake them as a kinesthetic learner, because they describe a lot of, I feel this, I feel that. But if you listen closely to their words, they really are using the words of rhythm and balance, tempo, pace. So I really tune into those words. And then as a result, I teach them according to that to those words. So the fluid, more abstract concept for an auditory learner really makes sense to them. And I try to stay away from what does it look like, what does it feel like. Of course, we all use all of our senses, but this is their primary. If they feel like I'm in good balance at the finish, it's great feedback for them to know, okay, I'm in the correct positions. Am I off balance? Okay, let's talk about your width. Let's talk about loading up. But the indicator is usually their rhythm, their pace, and the balance, and tempo. And so a lot of instruction is based around those components of the swing.
So how do you figure it out? How do you figure out they're an auditory learner? Do you have a test or?
Well, a lot of it's how closely they're paying attention to me, because auditory learners listen literally to every single word you're speaking. I mean that literally, in that I have to be careful as a teacher how I communicate to an auditory learner, because those words are very key. What they hear is what their brain accepts and what their brain then follows in instruction. So I listen for words like, yes, I can tell when I'm not swinging well. I swing very fast. Or someone tells me that I keep noticing I'm out of balance when I finish. So they continue to repeatedly use the balance thing. Or I'll ask them, what's a good swing for you? Well, when I hear the club, when I hear the contact, the impact. So there's a sound component too. An auditory learner will typically have a sound relationship to their swing.
Very deep, Leslie. You are quite the teacher.
It's fun, though, because they're a forgotten breed learner.
Yeah, and I think the point that you make, and is very important for all teachers out there that are listening to the show, is that interview at the beginning. That's the most important part of the lesson. Listening to what they're saying. You become the auditory learner at that point, where you listen, you figure out by their speech patterns, it didn't look right, it didn't feel right, it didn't sound right. That's really how you determine it. And Leslie, you've given us
very key.
Great in-depth understanding there. So thanks for that. So now I want to kind of, in closing a little bit here, I want to talk about why we as a couple, we have so much fun together. And when we play, we don't ever play without a match. Leslie's kind of competitive in that regard. Even though she hates to play in tournaments, you love to play against me. So when we go out and play, I give her 4 shots aside.
Not enough.
She says not enough, but the crazy thing about those 4 shots, I don't care what golf course we're playing, it always, and we play front 9, back 9, and 18, 3 different matches. That's called an assault for those that don't know that. And we have press bets.
Yes.
So a press bet, if you're not into gambling, is let's say that I won like 4 holes in a row at the beginning of the 9 holes. And instead of having her give up, she's going to say, I press, which means from that point forward, even though the original match is still in play, we start a new match for the equal amount of the bet going forward till the end of the 9. So what happens is she'll usually wait till she gets to a stroke hole, which always seems to fall on 7, 8, and 9, or 7 and 9, or 8 and 9. Mm-hmm. I could be up in 4 different bets, and she says press. Don't say never. She says press. And when's the last hole? I might even make a par, and she'll make a par, and then she wins the hole with her stroke. So she always gets that. It's a get out of jail card, and she always does it. But one thing I love about our matches, even though we're trying to beat each other's brains out, we're both teachers, and we both want to help each other. I want her to play great. It's no fun to win when somebody's playing great and the other person's playing lousy. So we do usually give each other permission during the round, but it's usually only if we ask for it. Like I won't, if she had a bad shot, I won't say, well, this is what you did. But if I do the same, I'll say, did you see that swing? And she'll say, yeah. I say, well, what did it look like? She'll give me some feedback. It's usually spot on. So we're competitive, but we want each other to do well.
We really try to be nice to each other out there, don't we?
And we always kiss at the end of the match, right? So,
and we never pay off our bets. That's the other thing.
Yeah, you didn't have to put that part in there. And we do have a saying at home that I'm the boss and she's in charge. So I guess that's probably true, much as I hate to admit it. Leslie, it's been wonderful having you here on the show. This is hopefully a very helpful interview for couples and moving forward. Thanks for coming on the show. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Yes, I think that golf is a beautiful game. and it's really a privilege to play it. It costs a lot of money to play the sport. It takes a lot of time and costs us time in a sense, and takes us away from things, family sometimes. But when we learn to really honor the game and recognize it as a privilege to play, we have to also acknowledge that it's the relationships that we build through the game are so important. And so it's important that we appreciate what we have. We appreciate our game. We appreciate the time and the people that we've chosen to spend time with, and never really forget the beauty of the game, which is there are so many things for so many people. But yes, honor the game, appreciate it, and count it as a privilege.
Well said, Leslie. No truer words were ever spoken. And folks, you heard it from Leslie Guttenberg, LPGA Teacher of the Year in the Northeast section of the LPGA, which is about 8 different states. Golf for Women, Top 50 Golf for Women magazine teacher. My wife, my pal, my friend, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks. It was a privilege.
All right. Well, there's another episode of Let's Talk Golf in the books. Hopefully you and your significant other will have some great ideas to take to the course and enjoy this wonderful game. Comments and suggestions are welcome by sending us an email through the Contact Us tab on our website, guttenbergsgolf.com. That's GUTTENBERGS golf.com. And subscribe to us on iTunes, and if you like the show, write a review. So we'll see you next time on the next episode of Let's Talk Golf.